It's the rematch of a 2021 main event. We have Anthony Lionheart Smith taking on Superman Ryan Spann. And both guys met in the small cage. It was Ryan Spann kind of crowding Anthony Smith. Picks him up on one side of the octagon, carries him across to the other side, and then out of it they break. And Anthony Smith decides he's going to strike like he's Ryan Spann and wing power shots. Two of them hit Ryan Spann, and he's on baby deer legs. And as the fight continues to progress, Anthony Smith is able to beat up on Ryan Spann. We saw an armbar attempt at one point that looked like it was going to be tight, but by the end, Smith gets the back, Smith gets the finish. And listen, people might not like Ian Machado Gary after what he did against Neil Magny at UFC 292, but Anthony Smith, he was not happy with Ryan Spann after that fight. Smith, after that, has gone on to lose a couple in a row. His last time out did not look very good against Shawnee Walker. For Ryan Spann, he won 2 in a row in the first round, and then his last time out, he took on Nikita Krylov, and he got grappled into a pretzel. So when you look at a fight like this, Matt, Ryan Spann still just an absolute bit of a buzzsaw to the brain. The fact that he used to be a long-time middleweight, but he was.
He's huge.
And that really happened. He fought Trevin Giles one time, but for Spann, he's one of the bigger guys at 205. And for Anthony Smith, long-time middleweight in his own right, he looks a little bit more like a normal light heavyweight. And Smith, we know, he's had the big-time fights. He had the title fight back at UFC 235. In total, for Anthony Smith, 19 UFC fights, 11-8, 8 main event slots, and 1 co-main event. He's gone 5 and 4 in those spots. So, again, for Smith, the 2 losses in a row, 1 against Shawnee Walker, 1 against Magomed Ankalaev. Pretty tough outs in those ones. But Smith, again, his last time out was troubling for more reasons than one, and it might cause you some question marks in this fight against Spann.
Where is Anthony Smith on, the Nomar Garcia-Para career line? Nomar was awesome.
I think it's Dodgers line.
He was good for a couple seasons with them, and then it fell apart. That's the thing about Anthony Smith. You don't need us to tell you the amount of high-profile fights that this guy has been in. He's been in the top of the division, not really at middleweight, but ever since he moved up to 205, he's really inserted himself as one of the dominant fighters in this division. And I know it started with a weird win over Rashad Evans. Yeah, you wouldn't think a whole career trajectory would start with a win over Shogun and Rashad.
Hold on. Prelims against Rashad Evans, gets a win. Main event in Europe against Tiny Trunk Shogun Rua.
And that was an oddly fun fight. It wasn't. It was sad to watch for Shogun. Shogun himself was crying on the way to the ring. But you have to ask yourself, just how much does Anthony Smith have left? And I don't mean he's not going to go out there and try his best to win this fight. The guy got that dog in him. He's got a lion in him, if you will. But for Smith, how much damage can he take until he just can't respond anymore? Because think of the Glover fight. What?
Yeah.
Glover beat his teeth out. Anthony Smith has taken a life-altering amount of damage throughout his MMA career. He is 36-18, and a lot of those stoppages, or a lot of those losses, have come by way of stoppage. And I know his chin did get better once he did find his way to 205. He can take body shots a little bit better. He can take shots to the head better too. But again, Ryan Spann, even though he got hurt in their first matchup, and Ryan Spann's another guy who, when you think everything's going great, it all comes tumbling down. But Spann, if he can get on the inside of Anthony Smith and hit him with a few shots, especially early, I wonder if that gets him enough respect to where Anthony Smith won't just rush forward with his own offense. Because Smith, remember the Jimmy Crute fight. The Jimmy Crute fight for Anthony Smith is one that kind of gets brushed under the rug because, hey, Crute had a knee injury. But you got to remember what happened in the early goings of that fight. Smith had really stayed in the middle of the cage, used his jab effectively, and used a lot of those long-range tools like the leg kicks to his own benefit in that matchup. And I think that's when Anthony Smith is fighting at his best. When he's able to use the kicks, not moving backwards up against the cage like we talk about all the time, but use the kicks and move forward and fight with that confidence that we have seen throughout the past.
And Ryan Spann, a lot of people are going to really love those last 2 wins that he had. Iwan Kutsalaba and, of course, Dominic Reyes. Reyes comes back, power jab, and as he lands the jab, Reyes starts to fall back, and then he lands the right hand and kind of drops him even more. But Spann in the UFC, a couple of bonuses, Kutsalaba and Misha Serkinov. For Anthony Smith, 6 performance bonuses and 1 fight of the night to his credit. But when I look at Ryan Spann, this is where numbers are deceiving. Sometimes I'll mention a knockdown ratio, and then I just brush it under the rug. For Anthony Smith in the UFC, not Strikeforce, just the UFC, his knockdown ratio 7-4 to 4 against. For Ryan Spann, 5-4 to 2 against. But Spann, it seems like in every single one of his fights, he gets cracked, and then the wheels completely fall off until he either wins or he loses.
It really is a tale of two different guys, especially with their durability. Because you're right, when Spann gets hurt, he doesn't have the recovery of a guy like Anthony Smith. Smith will get hurt to the body, hurt to the head, kind of do that turtle up, and if he is able to work his way through it, he can still be an effective fighter after those big moments. But you're right, when Spann does get hurt, he doesn't necessarily have that backup kind of generator. Remember Michael Bisping? Like, Michael Bisping's fights didn't start until he got dropped, and then he just became like a superhero afterwards. For Anthony Smith, again, I just wonder, can he still go through those early sets of adversity and find his way out on the other? Because, again, at 36 and 18, like, even the wins have been difficult for Anthony Smith along the way, so you do worry about when age is going to catch up to him. And I know it's 205 in heavyweights, we will see them still be in their prime, in their mid to late 30s, but again, for Smith, it comes down a lot more to the damage than even his age on a piece of paper.
And I mentioned it earlier on this card. Parker Porter somehow has the number of both Tafas probably in his family list, because
do you think they have a group chat?
He's got those guys on speed dial. Anthony Smith and Tim Williams. He had Tim Williams' number. Matt, when you do look at this one, Spann is favored in the rematch. He was favored in the original matchup. We have a look at the Tapology votes. Surprised that's the are to you. I don't think the fans are going with Anthony Smith in this one, and I think an inordinate amount are going with Ryan Spann. I'm going to say over under 80% Spann. The fans had Spann over Krylov as well. I think they like Spann in this.
I think it's going to be under. I think Anthony Smith is enough of a fan.
And it is. So 822 total votes, 71% Spann, 76% by knockout. For the 29% that I have Smith, 57% see it going by way of submission, as it did in the first meeting. And for Ryan Spann, it's weird. It's really weird because you'll watch him fight and he'll keep his hands really high, and then you hear Coach Saif yell, "Throw a jab!" And I'll throw one jab, and then I'll go back up to the high guard, and there's nothing behind it. He doesn't throw in combination. He'll kind of throw some of those power shots. When the wheels fall off, that's why I said Anthony Smith, once he got out of, or he was able to get rid of the seatbelt grip of Ryan Spann after he got carried across the cage, he turns around and he throws, it's a left hand that wobbles, and then he throws, I think it was a jab, and then he throws a right hand that wobbles, and Spann's not off.
You fight like Alexander Semin. A lot of these going on.
It was a lot of that. And that's the other thing for both of these guys. They kind of play the game of MMA like a Patrick Kane or like a Monte Ellis.
They don't like cab drivers?
They don't play defense. All they do is play offense. Smith maybe plays defense a little bit more, but Ryan Spann, it tends to be all gas, no brakes. That's overused. He's got that dog in him. That's overused, like you said for Anthony Smith. But when I look at a fight like this, I will go with Ryan Spann. But the other red flag to throw up there is fight against Sam Alvey where his cardio wasn't good. Those things really happen for Ryan Spann.
This is a fight that I think is very close on paper, but the result won't be close in the end.
No.
Like, don't expect a split decision where everybody's divided about it on Twitter, because, again, it's going to either end first-round knockout for Spann, because he does have that kind of power if he's able to land consistently. I don't think Anthony Smith, if he does that shell-up thing up against the cage, is going to be able to withstand some of the power coming his way if Spann is able to connect. But Smith does throw the higher variety of strikes. The one thing I don't like about this version of Anthony Smith's career, though, is one of his best positions for the longest time was that tie clinch. He had great elbows and great knees up the middle. We have seen guys outwork him in that position is a bit of a stretch, but at least have success there. And I don't know if he's still going to be able to go out there and just blast elbows to the head like he used to be. So for that reason, I agree with you. I do have Ryan Spann in the matchup.
Both of us going with Superman, Ryan Spann. Let us know down below in the comments section who you have. It's time for the main event. The Korean Zombie. 9 straight main events. He's going to be taking on the former champ, Max Blessed Holloway. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.